It's Mr. Morse. Trying to give you some information that we know now about the AP exam and the things that the College Board has available to you. So, very different information now than what we thought we were shooting at a while ago. But the AP exam is coming up. It is Thursday, May 14th. It's at 2 p.m. For that, you're going to be on your computer. You will get the questions on your computer. You can do that on a laptop. It's supposed to work on tablets. It's supposed to work on Chromebooks, all of those things, but it is being delivered to you online and it is being submitted online. And that 2 p.m. is not like a negotiable, be there around 2 o'clock, because they're timing it very strictly as one of the methods to try to ensure security for it. So it's very different in format, very different in the way that you're going to be asked, well, maybe not asked questions, but very different from what we were expecting, like a 3.5 hour test. So there's just two free response questions, and we'll go into the details of those. But the first one's a little bit longer than the next one, but they're both the same format. So you have 25 minutes to answer the question. You have 5 minutes to upload your answer, and that first one accounts for 60% of your score. The second one, you have 15 minutes to answer, 5 minutes to upload, 40% of your score. They've been saying that the test is 45 minutes. If we do some math on that, we can see that it's 40 minutes to answer, 10 minutes to upload. So it's either 40 minutes or 50 minutes, definitely not 45 minutes. So just plan on a full hour there. Different subjects are slightly different in terms of this, obviously. So if you're in calc or physics or bio or something else, you may have some significant differences here. But for chemistry, both free response questions, and I'm going to go to a different pointer here, both free response questions have the same format. So they give you a chemical system, data, maybe a data table, maybe a reaction, and is asking you to explain things using models, theories, and representations at the particulate and that macroscopic level. So that means what we can see, but also what we can't see. So if we're thinking back to kinetics, the particulate is like the collision theory stuff. Macroscopic would be like, oh, it used to be purple, now it's colorless. Models, theories, and representations just means that we're kind of explaining these things or putting these things into words. Drawing conclusion from experimental results, identify and explain procedures that align to a question, analyze sources of error. We've done all of those things, but I wouldn't be surprised if one of these presents you with some sort of data, either a data table, graphs, something along those lines, and you're supposed to draw some conclusions from it. Maybe explain what went wrong in terms of the error, how you could fix that error, redoing it, or redesigning a part of an experiment. Here, when it says quantitative reasoning, that means that they are still going to have some numbers on this test. And we started with this from the very beginning, claim, evidence, and reasoning. So like what you will have to answer a question, yes, no, endothermic, exothermic, increase, decrease, stay the same, all of those things, but then say what evidence you have. Maybe it's evidence from experimental data, maybe it's evidence from a written reaction, maybe it's evidence that we have from bonding. Well, the bond angle in this is smaller than that one because I have more lone pairs. And the lone pairs repel more than something else. So the claim is the smaller angle. The evidence is the number of lone pairs. The reasoning is how that repulsion changes it. So these are things we've been doing, but also things we're going to continue to practice. So here, the good news is it says that both free response questions are very similar to the traditional AP exam questions. So we've been doing that all along. Every test that we've had, every quiz that we've had is a actual free response question, and we're going to see some more. The difference here is that they said it's the biggest modification would be to allow things to be typed or handwritten. There was a webinar that I attended, and maybe several of your other teachers did, where the guru of AP communications, his name is Trevor Packer, if you want to follow him on Twitter, because he'll put out information every now and then, but he specifically referred to AP chemistry and AP calculus as classes where it may be most beneficial or maybe most likely where somebody writes their answers down on paper, takes a picture of it, and uploads it rather than typing. So we're going to practice it that way. We're also going to practice typing answers as we do some mocks. Just want some practice both ways. They will be coming out with more information for teachers and for you about this. But as of right now, we just want to be ready no matter what they throw at us. And it's very important that you have the actual periodic table. With everything that we're going to do and develop and everything that I'm going to ask you to have, I'm going to say have a paper copy in front of you. Don't rely on clicking from one tab to the next on your computer. You don't want anything while you're taking this test risking your ability to answer the question as clearly, quickly, and concisely as possible, including any sort of internet issues. I've shared this stuff out. A lot of this is still in that discussion on Canvas, but what the College Board defines as topics 8 and 9 are not going to be tested. Those topics are acid-base equilibrium. So there still could be some acid-base things. We did the basics of strong versus weak in terms of net ionic equations in the reactions units. There's some of this that connects with thermo. There's some of this that connects with stoich. So we're not forgetting everything. We're just not doing Ka, Kb. We're not probably talking about buffers. We're not talking about the half equivalence point, but titrations themselves, the idea that the moles of acid equals the moles of base, that was we did that earlier, and that is defined by the College Board as a reaction and stoichiometry topic. So don't forget about that. We're skipping electrochemistry altogether because it won't be tested. And with thermodynamics, they said nothing with entropy and free energy. There is some gray area there, so we'll still have some of that stuff on there. It won't hurt for you to know it. You won't be wrong if you're using it in an answer, but just know that that's less likely to be a focus, so we're not going to worry about it as much. They were very both specific and vague about this, that they communicated some of the steps they're going to do to discourage cheating and plagiarism and sharing of answers, but really most of the steps that they're taking, they are not communicating. So there's a lot of things in place to make sure that your work is your work. So do that. Don't try to figure that out. Don't test it. Don't try to think, well, we could do this and see if we can get away with it. It's not worth it. I was talking to an AP physics teacher from a high school around here, and his top student is not allowed to take the AP physics exam this year because last year he tweeted out a meme about the SAT, and the College Board did not take kindly to that, so he is no longer allowed to do any of their tests or participate in anything there. So you definitely don't want to risk it, I guess, or try to figure that out. They said that if they are suspecting of cheating, it will be reported to every college you have sent your AP scores to and your SAT scores to. And with colleges kind of making a deal with the College Board that they're still going to take these scores, doing something where you are one of the people compromising the integrity of the test will not be looked upon kindly. So another thing here is this is kind of a through the grapevine thing, but also makes sense. It's very unlikely that you're going to see a lot of math where it's just, oh, the answer is 12.6 or has a numeric answer, just because that's something that can be shared so easily and quickly, and it's kind of hard, maybe harder to trace that as plagiarism. It's going to be a lot more if there are numbers explaining where they come from and using them, maybe not even doing the math for a titration calculation, but explaining how you connect those numbers. I don't really know. There are 2 webinars I will be attending over the next month that are going to be specific to AP Sciences and the exam. So I'll be sending updates then. But I would say don't be surprised if you see very little to no math. If there's any people out there who are still struggling to get regular internet or are having to share a device such that the test would be a problem, the College Board and Westfield both have systems in place to support you. Let me know as soon as possible, and I'll try to connect you with the right people. We don't want that device to the lack of a device to be an issue in terms of you reviewing, but especially taking the exam. So another thing, and I'm actually working on a public service announcement with a AP Bio, AP Physics, AP Environmental teachers from different schools about this. Is just this is not the day of the test, May 14th, 2 p.m., is not just like you're pulling out your computer on your bed or in the backyard if it's nice, like to do some e-learning. You want to take this serious the way you would take a super serious test, the SAT, the actual AP test if you're at school, any of the tests that we've taken. So try to think of as many things here that you can do yourself, but also maybe there's something I haven't said. Really isolate yourself in a place where you can focus 100%. When I'm doing videos like this, I've kind of moved around, but here I'm in my son's room because I can close the door, I can lock the door, there's decent light in here, and I can focus and get this done without interruptions. Find a place that's like that for you. Work with your family to make sure your internet is as reliable and as fast as possible. I realize that parents are working from home. I realize that everybody has e-learning to do. This is on a day you will have e-learning assignments for your other classes, but see if this and on any other days that you're taking AP tests, you can at least make sure that you don't have like 10 people streaming things and trying to play games and doing all of those things. That the internet, as much of it as can be yours, to keep your connection as reliable as possible is yours. Obviously, other things will come up, but communicate that this is different. Connect with your siblings, connect with those at your house, connect with your parents. I said to have the periodic table. We're going to be working on cheat sheets throughout the month, trying to get just a summary of information for you to glance at. Have those available, have them on paper, have them neatly organized, have them exactly where you know that they are so that you can use them. This is widely published or talked about as a Open Notes test, but that we want to be careful with that. I'll talk about that on the cheat sheet video, but if you're using something, have it right there. You don't want to leave to get it. Have a calculator. I said I didn't think there'd be a lot of math, but who really knows? Be ready to go either way in terms of writing your answers, typing your answers. Know how you plan to upload your pictures, or you're going to be using the computer, the phone. We will know more about this. I will tell you more about this. But until then, be ready both ways. Get to your location early. Be ready to go. Have a full stomach, be caffeinated. I'm guessing I spelled that word wrong. But just be ready to go with all of those things. You don't want any distraction. You don't want to have to give up any time. The second page is a lot more kind of generic tips. I didn't change this too much from past years. But just make sure when you're answering a question that you're answering all parts. If they're labeled as A, B, C, D, E, label them, but make sure you have every part answered. Even if you're not totally sure of your answer, do that. You're probably going to be tight on time, but 25 minutes is plenty of time to answer a question. 15 minutes is plenty of time to answer a question. That's about what we do in class. So just get something down for everything. Make sure you're looking at the key terms, the numbers, the question words. There could be lots of reading. That's pretty normal on the AP test. It's gotten to the point where they're longer paragraphs in chem. So try to sort through the important information, make note of it, highlight it. I'm not sure what sort of tools we'll have online, but be looking for what you need and what you don't need. And then it may pull out chemicals and compounds and words that you don't know a whole lot of. They always use organic compounds in the test as examples of IMFs. You don't need to know anything about organic chemistry. You just look at the structure and see what elements are there. So get past those more confusing things right to the point of the question. Look at the question words. Are you asked to calculate? You're going to be using a calculator and your answer will be a number. Justify, you're explaining, you're supporting, you're clarifying, you're connecting to data, you're connecting to things you know maybe about the compound, you're connecting to things that you're being asked to explain, and then you're saying why that explains it. You've got a claim. Well, what's the answer? What do I know about this scenario? And then how does that information, the lone pairs, the temperature change, the increase in pressure, how does that prove what I was trying to prove? Maybe we're drawing a graph, sketching a graph, making a diagram. If we're doing that, hopefully we're doing that on paper. We can identify things and list things. That just means say it. So that's going to be another important thing in this timed environment is if it just says identify this, do that and move on. Identify the IMFs, it only has LDFs. That's the end of that unless they ask you to identify, justify, and explain. If it just says identify, just pick the thing and move on. A lot of times we are comparing and contrasting. We're talking about the IMFs and two things. We're talking about temperature changes. We're talking about equilibrium with reactants and products. So make sure you are talking about both or each of the things separately and completely as possible. As I'm doing right now, don't ramble. Try to get to the answer and move on. We will practice timed questions so that you can get better at that. Keep it very relevant to what you're being asked. We can still use sentence fragments. We can still use abbreviations. If you're writing by hand, you can make a bulleted list. You can use symbols. You are not going to be graded upon your grammar and your use of standard English. You may be referring to numbers. We may be doing calculations, but make sure that you aren't just saying things like, well, using the specific heat equation. You need to talk about the variables in that and how they connect, probably by writing the equation. So maybe that's an instance where we're doing it on paper. If you're one that likes to explain things using math, be ready to write, and you can use numbers and math to prove things. And then we know that we can upload pictures. That is something that maybe will be really good and easy for you to do a diagram, maybe an energy curve where you're showing the activation energy to compare the reactants to the products. Write that out, draw that out, and have that there. When you don't know how to do a part of equation, put something there and move on. We're still going to be using those same rules. So if you call it exothermic in part A when it isn't really, then do part B, C, D, E, F, G as if it were exothermic. Maybe you didn't know what it was for A to be able to answer it right. You need to get to the point there. If there is any math, you have to show all of your work, more so than ever. They're not going to give you an answer or points just for an answer because that's the easiest thing to cheat on. So if there is any math, you're going to have to show all the work, all the equations, all the steps, and make sure you have units on there. In thermo and in kinetics, units are big. So maybe there'll be a kinetics question where you don't even solve for K or do any math, but they still ask about what would the unit on K be, or what would you have to graph to do this? And the units could still be there. So as I said, there's 2 more webinars coming up that will help me to know more about the process, the format of the test, the content of the test, the way it will be delivered to you. There's going to be videos available to you, or at least to me, and probably to you, that'll kind of show you what the interface will look like. Hopefully, that's what we've been promised. So today I'm going to have you answer a quiz, or it's really just a survey to make sure that you understand everything that we saw here. You get the idea. There is a makeup test in June. Take the test in May. The reason for the makeup test is if you have a conflict that cannot be changed, that may happen. We're just coming off the big storm this past weekend where people lost power and didn't get it back. So that might happen in May, and none of us may take it. That's why they have the one in June, not just so you can quote study for 3 more weeks and be more ready. That test may be harder. It may be the same. It may be very different in format. It's really just a backup plan. So don't plan on that. If you know that May 14th is going to be tough for you, talk to me as soon as possible, and we'll try to make sure that we have our plan. Let's see. I want to do that. Let's see. Will it let me do this? Okay. The other thing that I wanted to show you, and I've got this linked, is just what all is here on this website. So we've got this is the College Board student free AP classes. Right here, it's got the exam schedule, so you can check this class and all your other classes. Over here, this is what it tells you. everything that I've told you. That's going to probably be filled in more over the next few weeks, but I'll keep you updated as well. But if you just want to keep your eye on that, it's all good. You can do that. They're still really trying to encourage you to take the exam, and I'm going to encourage you to do the same. So let's do that. And then down here, we have AP classes and review sessions. There are online AP courses, and over here they have the schedule. Let's see. There, I disappear and then come back. So what happens here is if you ever want to watch the live stream of chemistry, it is from 10 to 10:45 on those days. But then if we scroll, science is further down, we can see what topics they're going to cover on which days. So these are the ones that are already passed. Feel free to watch Acid-Base for fun after the test. It has some good stuff that'll remind you about strongs versus weaks. So it doesn't hurt in terms of reactions. But with these other videos, they're 45 minutes long. That's a big commitment. But think about what you know and what you don't know so you can make good use of your time. I don't think that many of you need to watch all of these, but maybe there's something that you're still a little bit stuck on, the spectroscopy stuff, or I remember the trends, but now I have to explain them again. Well, let's watch this one about explaining trends. IMFs, those are great things to have to be able to explain. So maybe something there. Kinetic molecular theory, definitely a big thing to explain. Spectroscopy, photoelectric effect, Beer-Lambert law, those are different pieces of data that we can take in. So we're looking at a lot here. They snuck in some stuff here again from Unit 9. So Unit 8, Unit 8 and 9 will not be tested, but that doesn't mean that it's not good, relevant things. But you're looking for what are the things that I don't know. If you see a word here, okay, titration, acid-base reactions, okay, I know I'm bad at those. Click that, watch as much of that as you want. If you see something you feel good about, okay, I know about reactions and net ionic equations, awesome. Don't worry about those as much. So every Friday you'll see, and I'll talk about this in other videos as well, that your homework is to watch College Board videos. That is not to watch everyone. That is not to watch all the new ones. It is to watch the ones that you need. So they are coming up with good resources here. Bookmark the page. It's linked there on the calendar. There, I've got it linked. The updates for students. So I'm back to this page. So whenever anything changes, it'll be there. The online courses here. If you need help with the device, we're good to go. It does say before April 24th. That'll be in the quiz. So I think that's it for the idea of what we know now for the test. During the week leading up to the test, we'll kind of refresh ourselves on these things. But some of this we need to know way out so that we can be in the right mindset with everything that we're doing. So that's it. You'll see a lot of videos from me doing different things. Hopefully you won't get too annoyed with me. Welcome back from spring break, and let's finish up strong.